This week's Piltch Point with Avram Piltch is proudly powered by Monster. The headphones on my head, the Monster DNAs, and a wide variety of other. These are on-ear. They also offer headphones in over-ear, like the Elements that I normally wear, or in-ears, including the iSports and the new Element and iSport AirLinks, which are true wireless Bluetooth, which are really nice. And of course, the whole new line of Bluetooth speakers, including the Superstar S100, 200, 300, 400, and the Monster Blaster, are all available at the all-new Monster website by going to PLUGHITZlive.com/monster. And of course, that music means that it's time for the Piltch Point with online editorial director of Laptop Magazine and Tom's Guide, Avram Piltch. And Avram has got a really great topic for us this week. We're going to talk about what is a good idea and not a good idea when configuring a laptop, right?
Yeah, actually, this advice will go for desktops too if you're buying one. Now, it's less common these days than it was in the past to be able to go to a website and say, make my computer exactly this way. I want this much RAM. I want this type of storage drive. I want this CPU. I want this, I want this graphics card. I want this screen. Like, it's less common and the choices are fewer than they were in years past. But there still are several sites where you could do this. Dell, Lenovo, and HP, all, if you buy through their websites, offer the ability to, on at least some of their models, to custom configure them. And even if you're not, per se, like getting a menu where you could pick, I want 8 gigs of RAM and I want a 256 gig SSD or something, you still have choices of different configurations that are pre-made. And so this advice should help you choosing amongst those. So there are a few different specs that are really key for somebody to look at, and you always have to balance price with, with performance. So, my general advice for the CPU is to, simply put, get a Core i5, unless you're buying a gaming notebook or a gaming desktop. Core i5, whether you're getting a ultra slim device like a Core i5 U series Ultrabook, or you're getting a somewhat thicker device. I mean, in the case of laptops, most are what we'd call U series processors. The difference between a Core i5 and a Core i7 in price might be $100 or $150. In performance, it's very, very small. So Core i5 should be good enough for most people. When you talk now, obviously, in terms of budget, if people are buying a laptop or a desktop that's, say, under $400, then Core i5 is hard to come by. You'll have to settle for a Core i3 or perhaps even a Celeron. But if you're spending that kind of money, then you don't really get a great choice of CPUs. If you're spending more than $400, you should expect and count on getting a Core i5. In terms of RAM, in terms of the memory, 8 gigabytes right now is the sweet spot in terms of price and affordability. 4 is too little for most people. You're multitasking. You've got several tabs open in your browser. It doesn't. You don't have to be, huge, professional video editor to need 8 gigs of RAM. Now, if you're a really intense worker, maybe it's worth it for you to spend the extra to get 16 gigs of RAM. But typically, if you're buying, typically the additional cost is $100 to $150 more to move from 8 to 16. So that's a cost that you can avoid. When you're looking at the storage in your laptop, your hard drive or SSD, our advice, which is not surprising to anyone who's listened to me for any length of time or read my articles for any length of time, is that you should always buy an SSD over a hard drive. If you're spending more than $600 or $700 on a laptop, or on a desktop, you should be able to get an SSD. Now, as far as the capacity goes, you should not get less than 256 gigs. 512 would be nice to get a larger size, like 512 gigabytes would be nice, but that can add significantly to the cost. If you're buying a device, a laptop or desktop that is user upgradable, you could say, and you feel comfortable upgrading your own storage, then you could buy it with a hard drive or the lowest, smallest SSD, and buy a third-party storage device on the aftermarket at a site like Amazon or Newegg, and you could save yourself quite a bit of money, because there you could get the whole 512 gigabyte drive for like $130 to $150 if it's on sale. So, but nevertheless, you want at least a 256 and you want an SSD. Another couple of things just to keep in mind. You definitely want your screen to be at least 1920 by 1080. That's no shocker, as we've talked about that a lot before on this show.
For years,
it's worth spending extra $50, $100 extra, or even more than that, to go up from the minuscule 1366 displays. If you're on a desktop, you really won't get any less than that anyway, than a 1080p display. You don't, unless you're really doing a lot of media consumption, you really want to just absolutely, or you're a professional photo editor, you don't necessarily have to go higher resolution than 1080p. Finally, do you want a discrete graphics card? You will want a discrete graphics card if you're gaming or if you're doing graphics work. However, if you are not, or you're just playing some casual games, you probably don't want to spend extra to get discrete graphics. If you are getting discrete graphics, getting the lowest level of discrete graphics, which right now is an NVIDIA 150MX graphics chip, probably isn't worth the money, because it's not going to give you enough of a performance boost to get you playing games. The minimum you should get is NVIDIA GTX 1050, and if you want to do VR, like with an Oculus, you'll need a GTX 1060. So that's your discrete graphics. We cover a couple more a couple more options, like the battery and the Wi-Fi card, in my article on laptopmag.com, which you can check out tomorrow, how to configure your laptop. But I just wanted to mention that, because there's these are some of the really important choices that you have to make when shopping for a computer, whether it's a laptop, a desktop, or an all-in-one. You want to make sure that you're spending your money wisely.
Absolutely, because you don't want to end up spending money on something that isn't going to make things better for you, when if you need to configure, for example, more RAM, or the $50 difference between feature A and feature B could be used to upgrade your monitor, your screen on your laptop instead. Obviously, there are better ways to put your money to use.
Yeah, in order of importance, screen, SSD, processor, RAM, or maybe screen, SSD, RAM, processor. RAM and processor, I guess you could go either way, but I would say the processor is actually, if you don't have a nice screen, you're going to notice no matter how little you're doing on the computer, right?
Yeah, no matter what you're using it for.
You could be watching Netflix. You can watch Netflix just fine on the Celeron, on the lowest end processor. But if your screen is bad, you'll notice.
Yeah.
And SSD affects the most important parts of your performance, which is booting, opening apps, opening files, switching tasks. When you're using a mechanical hard drive, all those things are just infinitely slower.
Yeah.
So, the two most important things are the screen and the storage before you look at the processor or the RAM.
Absolutely. And as evidence of all of this, Avram, the computer that you are on right now here in the studio, we actually downgraded the quality of the processor because we went from a full desktop actually to a stick computer behind the television that you're on. For those of you who are watching live and not the recorded split screen, the screen that Avram's on next to me here, we actually are using a little stick computer that we got on Prime Day for like $55, down from like a $600 or $700 desktop, and the performance on your new machine versus the old one is so much better, because partially because we went from a spinning drive to flash storage in the stick, but obviously there's some other considerations too. But our RAM went down, our processor went down, but the system runs better.
Wow, I didn't realize I was on such a cheap machine. I don't know how to feel about that.
It was the best decision ever. It works so much better, and now you can come with us, which you couldn't before. Kind of a cool capability. Anyway,
I feel like Max Headroom now.
Yeah, except you're not going to get hacked into a national broadcast for 3.5 minutes. One of my favorite tech things in history. Anyway, as always, Avram, thank you. Your advice helps a lot of people in their buying decisions. You said that this will be available on Monday?
It'll be available on Monday on laptopmag.com. So check us out there for all of our laptop advice, and check out tomsguide.com for all of our other electronic buying advice for desktops, phones, and everything else.
Fantastic. And we mentioned at the top of the of F5 Live that you just redid the battery test for a Laptop Mag, because you've got a cool story coming soon there too, right?
Yep. We'll probably talk about it on the next show.
Fantastic. Looking forward to that. Until then, I guess that is the Piltch Point.